Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Karsha Goblin and this is the Goblin Cave, and today we are doing our weekly tabletop role-playing game book week, and today's focus is the book below me, which is the basic role-playing. So basic role-playing is from Chaosism. It is their bare bones back-end system which they developed for things like Call of Cthulhu, even Paladin or Pendragon and other games like that. It's a really simple rules light system, which is a D100 percentile based system, and it can really be expanded to a lot of different areas. So I picked up basic role playing. Sorry, the green screen has an effect on the yellow color. I picked up that quite a while ago, and this has always been my go-to recommendation for that system that people are homebrewing something and they don't really have a rule set which might work, or if they're trying to shoehorn in a popular game system which everyone else plays into something, homebrew the rules so much into something which isn't exactly how it works. And I I just approach them and go, why are you doing that when there is a system out there which does this exactly? And it doesn't just do it exactly, but what it does, it gives you the base system, the SRD, which is what we were reading through today. It gives you a nice, good base system, and the book itself, this one here, again, green screen, sorry, will give you all the, like, a lot of optional rules for what setting you want to use. And as you can see from across the other side over there, it can do everything from prehistoric to cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic to fantasy. It has everything. It really does. And you can use horror as well, because this is the same system as the previous editions of Call of Cthulhu. So you can have sanity. You can have all these subsystems in there, and they're just all optional systems. So we're going to be reading the core book, not the optional systems, because the optional systems are the... So we'll be reading the SRD, not the optional systems. The optional systems are what gives you balance and gives you extra things to your game and to your setting. And that you can find in the book, which is below the one I keep on bringing up, or it has other things. So there's also, again, sorry, green screen, the classic fantasy, which essentially is, if you're going to do a classic fantasy game, that's the book that you get. It has a nice book of magic. There's actually a couple different variations of these, as in there's a couple different magic guides. And so the Book of Magic gives you ideas on how to run magic in your game. So it doesn't just have one system, but multiple different systems, which you can pick and choose which ones you use. These are all optionals. And the book I really, really was impressed with, which is Blood and Tides, which is their pirate game. Their Age of Sail style pirate game. And as I said, like, the idea is that these books give you, except for Blood and Tides, it's actually a campaign setting, but they give you optional rule settings which say, okay, do you want to tick this rule? This is what we're going to use. This is the rule we don't want to use. And you just pick and choose which rules you want to create your setting, create your rules on top of the basic rules. And now, unlike, again, popular systems, where you have rule systems which are very simplistic, yes, but everything on top of that is an exception to the rules. In this game, in these settings, the rules are simplistic, they're very rules light, and everything is built in accordance with those rules. So they're not exceptions, they're just add-ons. Maybe little alternatives, but they still use the same basic set of principles. And the very, very smallest and shortest and easiest way of putting it, all your character sheets are, all your character options or your skills, etc., are based out of 100. And so you want to roll under your skill to pass. That's the simplest version of doing it. There's no difficulty class. Everyone has their difficulty class determined by how much skill they have. If you have a lot of points in your skill, if you have 70, you have a 70% chance of passing. If you have 40, you have a 40% chance of passing, and so on. So if there's also variations where you can actually have more of extreme success or a harder success and things like that, which is very common to the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu rules. But it's the very basic principle of you just need to roll under. So that's the whole guiding light of the entire system. But we're going to go into a bit more depth into the SRD. Again, the full rules are in the books below, as in the book below me here. and I highly recommend this if you're going to do a homebrew, or if you've got a setting in mind that you want to make a story for. This is an amazing system to use that, because it's rules light, yet you can change the rules, and it's deliberately made with add-on rules that you can change the rules and change bits and pieces, and it's made for this. There's no classes, so you don't get shoehorned into, oh wait, but this person needs to have this ability. Well, they can just do it if that's the case. If a role player thinks that they should be able to do that, well, test a skill, and if they can do it, yay. If they can't, they don't need a feat. They don't need a special skill. They don't need a class skill or whatever. There's just skills, and your players can just create their own individual people in the world. And there's even got variations for having pulp rules where you have a bit more hit points, etc. Or you have the more Call of Cthulhu rules where you have a bit more normal individuals. But let's get into the game itself, into the SRD. And the SRD is absolutely free. You can pick it up at Chaosism. Go to chaosism.com and follow the links to basic role playing, and there's downloads to the SRD currently. They are also encouraging content creators. If you're making a new game, they are encouraging people to go, hey, we've got a system. You can make a game for our system. It is an open game system. So let's go into that, and let's open up. So I do have a shader over the pure white document, because pure white documents are really, really, really bright. So I've got a shader over that. So if you're having problems reading it, I'm sorry, but it's not a punishment. It's trying to help people that have problems with pure white documents, like I actually do myself. It's totally not an issue which I had creating the overlay last night. No, not at all. Totally was. And as always, the audio we're having in the background before we start, the audio we're having in the background is on Syrinscape, so check out syrinscape.com. They are not a sponsor of the channel. They just do amazing audio for role-playing and tabletop games, as well as board games. They can really set the mood. We have setting on the new Realmsmith games, Into the Mist, and I really like this. I found this yesterday when mucking around, and there's some really, really dark. I'm actually interested in going and learning Realmsmith games, role-playing system, and whatever they've got, and getting their Into the Mist just from listening to their sound sets, because it's a really horror setting sound set, and I like it. So we've just set it onto the tavern right now, just because I like having that tavern background, just that little bit of a noise and getting me into the mood. So let's jump in to the role-playing game. So basic role-playing, system reference document by Greg Stafford, Steve Perrin, Jeff Richard, and Jason Jarrell. So it's a Darwin-off stream. You're good. Thank you, Cody, and thank you for the follow as well. I didn't think you'd actually be around for these type of games, because I know this isn't the type of thing you're interested in. So no problem. And hopefully the audio is coming in. We have a total new change of audio in the last 2 days. We've revamped our entire audio and revamped the lighting as well. That was just this morning, which is why we're a little bit late. Second green screen came, so now I don't have it right behind me. Anyway, that's my stuff. Let's get into the game itself. So by Greg Stafford, Steve Perrin, Jeff Richard, and Jason Jarrell. So it goes with the legal information. Basically, it is a open game system, so you can open game license it, and it's got all the definitions and everything there. If you're a content creator, etc., this is all the information you need. I'm going to skip this. We don't need to go through this as just individuals looking at things and seeing what's there. Again, more bits and pieces, copyrights and bits and pieces. This is your BRP symbols. I've got a version of it right down below. I've got an older version in the center. I've got another one down in the center as well. That's an older version as well. Anyway, so the introduction. So this is a role-playing game, a rule set that allows players to participate in stories of adventure, horror, or action, acting out parts of the main characters. The game rules provide guidelines for what you can and can't be done, and the dice rolls determine whether the characters can succeed or fail at whether they attempt, at whatever they attempt to do. In role-playing games, one character takes the role of a game master or GM, while other players assume the roles of player characters, PCs. The game master acts out the roles of the characters not guided by the players. These are called non-player characters. So this is the very basic foundation of what role-playing games is. The next part is actually gives their idea of what role-playing games is. And I'd like reading these out because every game has a different variation, but they're all very similar of what a role-playing game is. And so any person that you ask what is a role-playing game, like any role player you ask what is a role-playing game, they will give you a different definition comprised of what their experiences is, what games they play in, what group they are associated with, etc. So everyone's got that slightly different, and this is the actual game themselves saying, this is what we believe it should be. So I like having these things. So a role-playing is a social game like improvising a story for a play. Improvising a story for a play, television show, or movie. Player characters are primary roles. They are the protagonists. The story revolves around them. A player character might be a swaggering gunfighter, depressed private eye, a brooding sorcerer, a mighty superhero, or a humble spacefarer trying to make ends meet. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? The game master devises and presents a situations that players experience, describing the world where they roam and how the world is affected by the player's actions. Each player usually controls one character, and the game master presents the entire game setting representing all the people and places, monsters, and even gods. So it goes into more and more details, but I think that gives you a nice idea of what it is. They're talking about an improvised storytelling, and like for play or television show, and depending on the type of game you're using. So superheroes, they will do it like a novel, like a superhero comic strip, and so you'll have like a very episodic. Some games are very episodic as well, like a television show, and other games are more like chapter based, and so each session of play is more of a chapter. So they're talking being an improvised setting, an improvised show, an improvised story, and I like that idea. That's very similar to my own ideas on the subject as well. And so, what is required to play? So the length of play. How long does role playing take? There are always three ways to measure time spent in role playing. First is the session. This is the actual amount of time required to play the game. Each sessions are usually last between 3 to 5 hours, though some are shorter and sometimes they go for much longer. The second is a measure for a game time in a scenario. This is a chapter of a story. 3 is usually the beginning, middle, and end of a scenario. So there usually is a beginning, middle, and ending of a scenario, consisting of some role-playing, some action, and dramatic resolution. A scenario may take one or more sessions to play through. The longest measure of a time is the campaign, a series of scenarios linked together to form an epic or engrossing longer story. The campaign may be finite with a beginning, middle, and end, or it may be open-ended and going until it ends. So I've personally been in sessions which used to range between 8 hours to 14 hours. That is just how long my group used to meet for, and that was my experience with role-playing. The modern version of role-playing is more that 3 to 4 hours or 4 to 5 hour. It's about 3 to 5 hour range set, which for me is really, really condensed. But people don't have as much time to spend these days. My role-playing group kind of disbanded because we didn't have that much time. So that 4 hour, 5 hour issue would have probably been better for us, but we've separated in our groupings anyway. But also with campaigns, I like that they actually talk about a campaign is finite. It'll end when it ends. some stories will certainly have an ending. Other stories is just a setting and the players reacting to that setting and telling their own stories. So those stories don't really have a conclusion, but more of an exploration of the world, an exploration of who those people are. So I like that they do actually speak about both sides of that. I think that's a really different way of putting it and a very mature way of putting it, because a lot of people very much only see a story or a campaign having an ending instead of having just an open-ended and let's just keep going until it finishes, until a conclusion is reached. Materials required in play. Well, players need nothing more than a little more than rules, pen and paper, and a set of dice. Dice are available at pretty much any gaming store, hobby store, etc. Variety of colors, shapes, blah 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 blah. And there's even dice apps and other bits and pieces which they talk about. There's also some gaming groups will use miniatures to represent characters, so players can bring their miniature resembling their own character. The primary ingredient required is creative energy through snack. So the primary ingredient required is creative energy through snacks. Those snacks are also appreciated. I like that. So snacks is always a big thing in role-playing games. Like, it's usually young people and it's like snacks all over the place, and people get dirty fingers and everything, and it's a whole thing in itself. Whole thing in itself. So dice and reading the dice results. So the dice which we use here are D10s, so polyhedral dice, to table render results, and they come in various sizes, etc. I'm going to actually have to zoom in. I have to do this every time. I set this up. This beautifully framed everything. So this is one page of the document, and I can't read it. I get to a few minutes in, like, I can't read this because I'm standing I'm a little bit away from my monitor, and I can't read the details. My eyes are not that great. So let's zoom in a little bit. Let's go to. We'll have to go. Sorry, I have to go in a little bit. Where was I? I said it's just a little bit, 75%. So the basic role-playing uses a variety of different polyhedral dice to obtain random results. These are available in a wide variety of ranges of sizes, colours, quantities, etc. from hobby stores. To play, a group needs to have one set of these dice, though it is easier and more convenient for every player to have their own dice. A set of gaming dice usually includes a D4, so a 4-sided dice, a 6-sided dice, an 8-sided dice, a 10-sided dice, so a 12-sided dice, and a 20-sided dice. A percentile dice is usually a 10-sided dice marked in 10, so 10, so 0, 0, 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, etc., up to 90. And this is also very useful in this system specifically. So, in basic role playing, the percentile dice, which is the two 10-sided dice, the 10s version and the 1 to 10, that's the most important one. That's what we're using pretty much all the time. These are called percentile dice because what we do is we have the 10s represent the 10s dice. So if it's if it rolls a 10 and then you roll a 5 with the other dice, then that's 15. If you roll 9 with the percentile, the 10s dice, and then you roll a 6 with the other, that's 96. And that's how you represent. The difference comes in if you roll 0, 0 on the 10s dice. That can be either 1 to 9 if you roll 1 to 9 on the other dice. But if you roll a 0 on the other dice, that's a 0, and that becomes a 10, 0, 0 as 100. And that's how you represent it with that. So that's the only real complication and weirdness about the rules is the interpretation of percentile dice. And realistically, it's a really minor thing. And it's just a very simple thing. So I'm just reading a little bit of chat. 3 to 5 hours is more often time-wise, since most people are at a monitor nowadays that feel, absolutely. Absolutely. I do agree there. It's just with my group, we just had one day a week where we could get together. There's a lot of games, a lot of people that I work with in the channel here that have 3 to 5 games a week. 3 to 5 role-playing games a week. That's insane for me. My own group, we had one role-playing game a week, and we would do, say, that 10 to 12, 14-hour game, and that was our fix for the week. That was it, done. But we'd change between campaigns, and these campaigns would be up to 5 or 6 years long, some of them. Anyway, let's get back into this. I'm going to get distracted. I like having people to talk to on the channel while we're doing this. So yes. So that's pretty much the dice. The dice is it's a little bit different from what you're used to with a D20. For most people use that. No, you're totally fine, Cody. Totally fine. Totally fine. I actually appreciate having someone to talk to, and I'm actually talking to someone. I can read your chats and whatnot. But yes. What I was saying. So yeah, if you're used to a D20 based system, it does feel different, but that 0 and 100 version is just the only little weirdness about using a percentile dice. Otherwise, it's a really, really easy thing to pick up, and it just becomes very, very natural. And a lot of systems used to use D100s in their abilities, and they've kind of verged away from using the D100 or percentile games, or even percentiles in their systems itself. But older systems did have percentiles, even if they were a D20 based system, they did used to have percentiles quite often in other aspects of their system. So the games master responsibility. The games master has the most fun in the game, but this comes with the largest share of responsibility. Each player must share the spotlight with all the other players. The games master is consistently interacting with all the players, while a published scenario or one that they have created, the game master narrates. The game universe acts as the player character's opposition. That opposition must be challenging and entertaining, or the players will get bored. It must also be presented fairly, or they'll be outraged. Otherwise, the game will not be fun, which is the primary point of role-playing. That's nice to have it written there. And although a lot of people say, oh my god, the games master, or the dungeon master, or the keeper, or the storyteller, the narrator, etc. A lot of people say, oh, but it's so hard to do that. It's really not. If you just want to tell a story, it's really not. It does help to get skills with ad-libbing and getting used to improv, and you get that from a player's perspective, and you learn some of those skills as a player, but you can also learn those as a GM, and it does work. Like, it's not a big thing, and I totally agree that the games master can have more fun than the players in certain situations and in certain games. And on this channel alone, especially with our first long-running campaign, which was the Rusty Daggers, we'll have one monitor right here of the live feed coming in from our cast members, and I would often be sitting here watching the live feed as the first person in the audience watching, like the first row of the audience watching it. And that to me was like a big privilege to see these scenes just play out, these dramatic scenes play out from characters in my own game. And it was super interesting for me. It was super entertaining for me. Although I probably should have been setting up the next scenario or next encounter, etc. But I was just so swept away, being front row seats from their acting, their narration, like everything that they were doing. And so I totally agree that yes, the games master can have some of the best fun in a game, and you can just tell a character, so explain how you just failed right then, and put the narration back on them, and they will usually and then they'll have to think up on something, and that's something that's is quite fun in itself. I like putting that psychological, sometimes even psychological warfare on the players, to have the heartbeat sound, say in a Call of Cthulhu game, or to have like really tense music, or fast rapid paced music if there's a chase scene or something like that. So having that really change the moods and amplify and move around the moods of the players, I actually like that part of games mastering. I like manipulating the mood of a player in games mastering, and I know that sounds really mean and nasty, But that's just my style of my games mastering, and that's just how I do things. So it's not for everybody, but it's how I do things. Okay, let's go into. I just realized we're just clipping a little bit everywhere with this. We'll see if we can go to 73. Might. Oops, there. So it should just fit into the screen. There we go. Um, so yeah, so I like that they've got that there. I won't go into all the other details of their version of the game mastering, but what I can see is games master should read and be familiar with the rules, know the general procedures of combat powers, and it's not necessary to memorize everything. Most questions can be answered as they arise. I also like that when I started games mastering for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, I didn't know much rules. I just trusted my players because we do everything live. If they're going to cheat, well, they're cheating live, and someone will pick it up. Someone else will pick up on them, and that's actually happened. People have picked up and said, "Well, actually, the rules were actually not like that. The rules are here," and they left a comment on YouTube, and that's pretty cool. And we've resolved that. We've figured out a lot of them's just common mistakes, etc. And I just have trust in my players. My focus as a GM is the actual story, and if it's a system which everyone knows, I will just trust them to run the system, and I'll just run the story, and they'll correct me. And if I'm wrong, I will say, "Yep, no problem." If it makes sense, if the rule makes sense, we'll run with the actual proper rule. If it doesn't, I'll just make a ruling and just keep the game flowing because we try to have a flowing game here, and then we'll look it up later, or we'll go through it properly later and go, okay, yes, you were right. Let's use that from now on. Or if we find a rule that contradicts what we've done, we'll have a discussion between the players, myself, and we'll figure something that works for us. For me personally, I like a game that flows, and because we're doing a online game, we're doing a show here. The flow of the game is super important for us. Well, it's super important for me, where other players will be very much rules concerned. There is a derogatory term called rules lawyer, and I'm actually looking at making up a class called a rules lawyer. But that'll be something later. Um, that's a little pet project that we're working on. Anyway, so that's a little bit on the games mastering. Let's go to character creation. So character creation, this section covers the process of creating a character in basic role-playing. The procedures for non-player characters are less involved and covered later. So I'm not going to go through all the character creation. This is a free document. You can access it at chaosism.com. So I'm just going to go on the ideas more than the full character creation because it can bog down. I'm slightly familiar with this. The only reason why I'm slightly familiar with this, it's been many years since I've read this, but this is also how the original or the early versions of Call of Cthulhu were made, like using this exact same open game basic role playing system. So my experience with basic role playing is actually through Call of Cthulhu. Even though there's slight differences in 7th edition, this is the same base system. Games like Paladin or Pendragon, same base system, but in Pendragon and Paladin, they actually have taken the basic role playing system, made a few changes. One of the major changes is they converted this from a D100 percentile system into a D20 system. But the systems in there are still the same. The subsystems that they use are exactly the same as this. They've just converted it to a D20 system from D100. So each player needs a copy of the character sheet presented on page 22 of this book. And there's only 23 pages here, so that's pretty good. It's possible just to write everything on a blank sheet of paper, but a character sheet makes things a lot easier. The character sheet includes the following sections. Identity. This is the player's basic information, aspects that don't have any game effects but help detail who the character is. Characteristics and roles. These values describe qualities of the character, such as how strong, smart, fast, attractive they are, etc. Roles are based off characteristics and are percentage values rolled to see if the character succeeds or fails at a task. Hit points. The value measuring how much damage a player character can take before they die. Bigger or So bigger and slash or healthier characters have more hit points, while smaller slash frailer characters have fewer. Skills. These are the abilities that the character has, some innate knowledge, training, education. In each is expressed as a percentage chance rolled rolled if the character succeeds. Roll to see if the character succeeds. No, that was my brain not working. Sorry about that. Weapons. These weapons. Sorry. These are weapons or attacks the character uses, along with descriptions of how much damage that they do to the other characters. Armor. Any armor worn by the character which may reduce any damage that they take from attack. And equipment. Other items the character may carry that may be of use. So just to touch on weapons, on armor specifically. So armor in certain games, more popular D20 based games, is makes the character harder to hit. In this system here, it is actually just takes damage away from the actual hit itself. So to hit a person, that's your skill to hit someone. The armor then absorbs some of that damage. Armor doesn't deflect weapons. It just absorbs damage and reduces the amount of damage. And that's very different to, again, those popular D20 systems where this is a bit more realistic, and there's actually a few systems which are going back to this route. This is a very old style of how things go. Though, again, the armor making it harder to hit is also really, really old with the very original games systems out there that used to be made under different companies. Anyway, so I won't go into identity. I won't go into all these bits and pieces, but we'll skim a little bit. So we've got identity, name, race, gender, hardness, etc. We'll have a look quickly at the character sheet. The character sheets are pretty basic, and by basic they are actually very So by basic, they are very uniform. So you can use these again for pretty much anything you need. They don't have specifics on specific weapons, but you can specifics on specific time periods or settings. But because they don't have specifics like that, they can be used across many, many different settings, which is the massive benefit of this game system. It's meant to be used across genres, and that's really cool. So again, you've got your top right corner where it's talking about identity, you've got your race, you've got your age, gender, etc., description, distinctive features. I like having distinctive features on a character sheet. It's often ignored. You've got your normal characteristics. So a lot of systems have things have pretty much similar ones, which you've got strength, con, size, intelligence, power, luck. So power, dex, and appearance. So you might think appearance could be charisma, that's very similar, and power is actually willpower. So wisdom, willpower, similar thing there. And then you've got idea rolls and bits and pieces, luck rolls, agility, charisma rolls, and effort, stamina as derivatives of those. You've got derived statistics, movement, and damage bonus. So damage bonus is usually, and we'll get into this in a bit more detail, where you have size, and I think size and strength or size and con combined give you a damage bonus. So the bigger you are, you're going to do more damage when you hit something. So that's usually for a melee or punching. So melee or brawl, you get a damage bonus from some things. And you may get damage bonus from a bow or a spear or something like similar things like that. But it will usually say when you're actually putting a weapon in or etc. When combat, they'll have things there. And also power points. Power points might not be in every system because, again, this is a very generic system. So if you've got a system which is using magic, you might have power points. If you've got a system which is using more tech-based things, those power points may be used for other things based on that. So again, this is this open system which has lots of tie-in little add-ons, and those add-ons make the system that you're using. So if you think of a cyberpunk world where Like this would be able to do cyberpunk, but if you want cyberpunk, which is similar to say Shadowrun, where Shadowrun has magic, well, you can have cybernetics. That's in here. That's no problem. But then it's like, okay, we want magic as well. Okay, just tick the box of magic and use those rules as well. And then you've got magic, you've got cybernetics, and then it's like, okay, we want different races. Okay, no problem. We'll just add in the rules for different races, and you've got essentially Shadowrun. You've got magic, you've got cybernetics, and you've got races all in the same setting, and that's a Shadowrun setting itself. Um, so you can emulate other settings as well, like with this system, which is also a thing I really like. As much as I love the Shadowrun system, so love the Shadowrun setting, I have had problems with the system itself. Um, and that's just personal. That's me. There's probably a lot of people that really like it. For me, I have issues with it. But anyway, let's get back into this. So again, you've got skills, a lot of different skills you can put things in, and you might be able to see there that you've got in brackets after the skill. So throw has 25 in brackets. That means that they have a base chance of 25%, no matter what, of being able to do something. Other things like art, you've got 5% as your basic chance. So if you don't put any skill points in there, don't put anything into there or don't advance it, you still have an ability to use it in a small limited fashion. So everyone has that ability, except for usually, does it have it here? And Dex, so dodge is also based off Dex times 2, is your native dodge, and then you can add things on top of it. Gaming has intelligence plus power. Okay, it doesn't have, there we go. It's got some things, but yeah. So in Call of Cthulhu, they have Cthulhu Mythos, which is always 0/0. You can't learn it, you can't do it unless you have some ability to use it. And that's a certain thing as well. They do have technical skills here, which start at 0/0. There we go. And a few others that I can see. Then you've got basic equipment, you've got weapons and shields and armor, etc. And that's the entire character sheet. There's not much here. But you don't need a huge amount to be able to form a character sheet. And what they do have here actually gives much more than a lot of other character sheets, which have pages upon pages of information to fill out. So I really like this character sheet. It's very basic, very simple, and very usable. Let's get back into here. We're back into identity character sheets, and we've got to zoom back in because I can't read. Let's go to 72, I believe it was. Nope, that's 82. Why can't I can't even type either. There we go. So should be able to just see the edges there. So then it got distinctive features, etc. Profession. Profession is also something I like because this is a classless system. You can have a profession where you just list, okay, this is what my character does for a job. In something like Call of Cthulhu, you have professions instead of classes. Call of Cthulhu again based off the same thing, and your profession will then lead you into certain different skills that will be linked into that profession. And so I like the idea of having profession, and then you essentially negotiate with your games master or your keeper of what professions you think, what skills you think that profession would have when starting. And I like that version of how to do things. In games like Zweihander, they have a huge amount of professions, and it's a similar thing. They will give you certain skills based off that profession, and you can choose outside of those as well to add different elements to your character, but it'll give you some certain things just because of your profession. Similar to a skill, similar to a class, but a lot more open to interpretation and negotiation with your games master. So you can go, okay, I want to be a bouncer, but I'm not really the type of bouncer that's big and brute and so I'm not the type of bouncer which is a big brute that intimidates people by standing over them and beating them up. No, this guy's a bouncer because if someone gets out of line, he just opens his cloak and there's a big machine gun there, and that's his bouncer style. He uses intimidation and charisma instead of big size and things like that. Just different aspects. You can change things about, and you can negotiate with your games master of how you perceive these things, how you perceive those skills relating to your class, also to your occupation. and I like that version. Open dialogue is a lot easier than just strict rules sometimes, and I believe dialogue should be open. Even with games which does have strict rules, I do try to stick to the rules of character creation, mainly because if I don't know the system very well, and I know some systems can be really gimped by, or sorry, really exploited, I try to keep things very much either to the rules or very much the core rules itself and not the expanded rules. But I won't go into that too much at the moment. Okay, so we've got characteristics, we've got effort, we've got other bits and pieces. Derived characteristics, there you go. Hit points is size as your constitution plus your size. Damage bonus is your strength plus your size. I was close. So if you've got 17 to 24, you've got nothing. You got no addition, no subtraction. If you got 13 to 16, you get a -4 damage bonus. So your punches might do D4 and then minus D4 because your damage bonus. And this is something that's always been in the Call of Cthulhu and therefore the basic role playing. Again, the bigger you are, the more damage bonus you go. D4 is more normal. D6 is almost impossible to get with your normal statistics, and you can get 2D6 as well, but they're going to be more for monsters. Monsters and creatures are going to be bigger than normal humans. But because this is actually an open game where you can actually add in races, you might be able to get in things with races as well. It's very interesting how it's developed. It's got a very good nice base, and then it can expand so much more. So there we go with your skills. So praise that has that 15%, and etc. etc. And it's got a lot of different skills that you can put in. Professional skills. So a cowboy would have probably craft, usually knots, firearm, maybe rifle, knowledge, natural history, knowledge, local history, listen, navigate, ride, spot, throw, and track. So that's the suggestions they have for that profession. So that's what I was meaning by having those things. You can then negotiate those things. Go, well, I actually don't think he'll have this. He wouldn't have a rifle. He uses a pistol. So can I change that to this? And then the gamekeeper will just go yes. Or if there's a reason why it's a no, then they'll say no and give an explanation. But the idea is to have that communication, have that talking. And it goes through cowboy, detective, doctor, hunter, lawman, noble, sailor, scientist, soldier, spy, thief, warrior. So that's kind of a small little breadth of how expansive this idea is. And the full book has more, and the expanded books, the additional source books, again, will have more. And you can just put your own in there as well. You don't need to follow these. So you've got personal skills as well. These add on top of those professional skills and your equipment as well. So a set of clothing appropriate to your character's profession, an amount of pocket money, etc. Again, I'm not going to go full detail into everything here. So now we go into the system itself, the really core base. Okay, so the routine game actions in routine situations are almost always succeed. As discussed prior, which we didn't read, generally speaking, a character shouldn't have to roll to determine if they drove successfully to work or cooked a basic meal. However, when the action becomes dramatic or extraordinary, players and the game master should roll a dice. Players and the game master should roll a dice for resolution. So it's not always opposed, but sometimes the game master needs to roll against the players, or just roll to make something from someone else, from the other person's perspective. So if the ability is, so this is the ability range from 1 to 100, and this is special result, this is success, and this is failure, and this is fumble. So fumbles do range from 99 to 00, or from 96 to 00, depends on your ability. So this does float. And so you've got special success, and you've got success in other versions, such as the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu. You have success. So you've got fumble, failure, success, hard success, and extreme success. In this time, you've got fumble, failure, success, and special success. And it goes through and explains which ones is which. And I think it's really good. You don't even have to know exactly what it is, but it's there for you. It's already worked out, and you don't have to think too much. I believe it's 5%. So it's 5%? No, it's 20%. So if we've got 50, it's 10. There we go. Yep. Yep. So it's 20% of the actual ability score is your extreme success or special success. There you go. Math. Oh, wow. Okay, so success or failure. In most situations, the most important question in role-playing is, do I succeed or do I fail? The next most important is, how well do I succeed or fail? Basic role-playing provides an easy-to-understand system to measure these chances using dice rolls to these questions. Some skill rolls, especially combat skills, are inherently dramatic and dangerous, or dangerous, especially combat skills. Where am I? These are always rolled for players. And the game master use the percentage dice, the D100, most of the time to determine success or failure. I will point out, going back to this table, that rolling low is better. So you roll as low as possible is better. In the variation of this system, which is used in Pendragon and Paladin, again by the same by Chaosism, it's not rolling low is better. It's actually rolling as high as possible and still succeeding is better, which is a kind of a weird or different variation. But the idea being is, if you've got 70, if you've got 70% chance, you want to roll like 69, like 60, like in those high 60s to actually succeed in the most extreme. Because if someone's got 50 on that same skill, you can actually outrange them, and that's where it's better. So it's a slight variation, a kind of a twist on the same thing, but in this one, it's always lower is better. I just wanted to point that out. That similar system based off the same rules with a little bit of tweaking, has a little bit of tweaks here and there. But anyway, yeah. So ideally, you're pretty much rolling against your skills, against your own skill, against the rating that's already listed on your character sheet, and if you roll under 20% of that skill, which is you'll have noted on your character sheet, then you have a special success. So skill versus skill. This is one of the big ones here. I'll actually point out this. So we have automatic, when it's completely certain that a character will succeed when there's nothing major at stake, life or death, etc. The skill just succeeds. You don't even have to roll. And that's one thing which a lot of game systems just go, hey, this is a like DC blah blah blah, and it's like, really, you got DC 5? You just climb, done, or just do this. There's no threat at all. You can just do it. I don't care about rolling. Yet it'll still actually, as a GM, I don't care about rolling, but it'll still ask your players to. It'll ask you, the GM, to ask your players to roll. It's like, just let them do it. There doesn't need to be a check all the time. And there it goes, automatic. It will happen. Easy, some combination of circumstances, conditions, or other assistances have made it easy to perform in a skill. Double the skill chance. The dice should be rolled even if the chance is over 100%. However, as there's still a chance of a special success or failure, both are described below. So you can double it, and you can go over 100%. That's a little bit of variation, which we'll do need to actually speak about, if I can find it. So normal, standard conditions, standard things, everything's the same, done. Difficult conditions, if a skill would be made more difficult by some circumstances, condition, or other situation, divide the skill in half, rounding up. Rounding up, very important. Some systems will always round down. It does specifically say round up here. So, and usually a system will say it's going to be this all the time. So if it says round up, I always assume everything across the board is going to be rounding up. It's very rare to have systems go both up and down in certain situations. Anyway, impossible. If it's simply impossible for a skill to succeed, such as a normal human attempt to leap 100 meters into the air unaided, or solve a crossword puzzle in absolute darkness, no roll should be allowed. The skill attempt just fails. With the appropriate consequences, the game master may declare no roll be attempted, or let the player roll, describe to them how badly their attempt failed. And that's really good. It actually tells you that don't, like, it comes out and blatantly say, look, some things are just going to be impossible. I've had players essentially say, I'm going to do this and roll, before me as the GM saying, no, you can't. And okay, they got a critical success, but they still can't. They still can't do what they were described to do. Some things are not going to work. Physically, mentally, whatever, or even in the game mechanics, some things just aren't going to work. So, and like that, it actually just blatantly comes out and goes, look, some things are just not going to work. So don't even let your players roll, or let them roll and then describe how badly they failed, because it's never going to work no matter what. And in most situations, players will understand that. If the player doesn't understand that, there's something flawed there, either in how that player approaches your game, how you've described the game, or how there may be a communication failure between the two. So there's an issue if there's a failure there, because the first time as a GM I told a player no, after, as I said, they described what they were doing, they rolled, and they rolled a critical before I could say no, you can't even roll. And I said no, it doesn't happen. The person then just walked their character off a cliff, 300, 400 foot cliff, killed off their character, and then walked out the room and walked home. I was their lift, and that was a minor. I was like, his older brother was there, and we were actually in his older brother's house. And but anyway, it was a kind of weird situation where that kind of happened. But it does now, like, this system does say, if it's impossible, just don't do it. Don't even let them do it. And I like that it's actually written here. Some systems are very, very player friendly. I don't like player friendly systems. I like to actually challenge players. I like to push players. And when players, at least in my perspective, if a player is pushed into thinking, into critical thinking, into creative thinking, into stressful situations, they cherish those. They cherish those times when they've actually persevered and gotten through. And it shouldn't just always just be a roll. It could be creative thinking gets you through, instead of that random chance gets you through all the time. Or that random chance, even if you did everything right and fail, and that random chance fails, it's like, well, actually the system says you failed, but you did absolutely everything right. So just let the player get everything right and let them go through. As the narrator, as the GM, you can always just ignore the rules and let the people do what they need to do. Anyway. So spot rules covers a few situations where difficulties are applied, although for most part these should be obvious or assigned by the game master where appropriate. For example, the game master may announce that fighting in near darkness makes it difficult. Half the chances are half their normal chance. Special circumstances, not all successes are equal. Sometimes the skill use is just right, and the result is better than normal. In this case, the result is called a special success. A special success is equal to 1/5 the chance of success, rounded up. Use the final chance if modified by difficulty. Use the final chance if modified by a difficulty. Okay, yep, sure. For example, a skill 60%, a roll from 1 to 12 is a special success, which is 1/5 of 60%. In normal skill use, a special success means that the skill succeeded especially well, and should have an enhanced result if the exact result should be left up to the game master to determine, but as a rule of thumb, it should be twice as good as a regular success. In combat and in special success, does additional damage as described in blah blah blah. Um, so that's essentially critical. So you've got 1/5 chance of critical instead of 1/20th. Yeah, 1/5 instead of 1/20th chance of critical. Um, but that's 1/5 your skill, not 1/5 of everything. So it may work out, may not. It's kind of it's kind of a up and down ball there. But I do like them. I don't like double the effect, double the results, but I do. I sometimes there's no special result if a special success. Sometimes as a game master, I will try to do something, but other times you just can't. Sometimes the success is just a success. It's a black and sometimes the result is only black and white. You can only succeed or not succeed, and so. But yeah, at least they've got it there, and they've got a description of it there, and they've got further rules for special successes in 3.15. So 5.13. Wow, that's bad dyslexia. So skill versus skill. This is actually really important. This is where the system really can get complicated and can throw a few people off. And this is where even 7th edition, the most 7th edition Call of Cthulhu, the most updated version of this basic rule set, has a few failings and has a few issues which I don't like. I like this version a little bit better, the older school version. So, skill versus skill. Often, when a character attempts a skill that must be countered by a non-player character, or vice versa, and sometimes a player character versus another player character. Sometimes, it is known as an opposed skill and describes a situation as such a player character using stealth to move undetected versus a non-player character using their listen to detect intruders. In this case, scroll down. All acting parties should make their appropriate skill rolls and compare results. If a party fails, the consequences are either obvious or a stalemate is achieved if no one else achieves their goal. So if one fails, one fails and the other one succeeds, it's obvious who wins that. If both fail, well, it's a tie. It's a stalemate. So if only one party succeeds, the successful party is accomplished without any challenge. So if the sneaker achieves, the person trying to detect them by listening doesn't achieve, that's really obvious, they get past, done. We're going to keep this analogy all the way through. If the roll succeeds and are tied, equally the same result, the character with the highest skill rating is successful. So if the stealth person succeeds and that person has 70 in stealth, if the listener has 30 in listening and succeeds as well, then the stealth person actually passes. If one or more party succeeds, normally the highest level of highest success quality. If one or more party succeeds normally, the highest successful quality of roll, a special success beats better than a normal success. If that's the count, then okay. So in normal circumstances, as I said with the last one, if they both succeed, the person with the highest skill actually passes. But if there's a situation where yes they both succeed and the person with the highest skill check passes, but the person with the lower skill check has a special success, they rolled really 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 low, so there would have been like a 1 or 2 in their 30, then they would actually succeed. They would be the one winning. So there's a little bit of complication there. A little bit of weirdness, but it's not too bad. So think levels of success in 3 stages. Special success equals success. So special success is greater than success, which is greater than failure, with the meaning of is greater than. Being greater. Yes, it even explains what the greater symbol is. Wow. Um, so when comparing levels of success, special success is greater than success, which is greater than failure when dealing with opposed roles. So special success versus special success, the person with each degrades 2 levels of success becomes 2 failures, even an experience check. Though an experience check is allowed as the rolls are still successful. Okay. Special success versus success. The special success becomes a success, and the normal success becomes a failure. So that's how they're looking at it. They're kind of pushing them that way. Special success versus a failure. Special success achieves double the intended result because the special success is two past the failure. Oh, I gotcha. Yep. So when it's a special success versus success, they move the success into a failure and the special success into just a normal success. So it doesn't give you special results, but it pushes their success off the board and they still pass it. That's what they're talking about with that one. Okay. So in such cases, so this is actually better than the 7th edition version, which is even more complicated because they've got an extra level of success in there. They've got extreme, which is their special success. They've got hard, and then they've got success, and then they've got failure, and etc. Yeah. Anyway, and they've actually explained it probably better here as well. So in cases where both parties fail, the game master can determine whether it means both parties fail their goals, or acting parties somehow foul each other up and create a stalemate that must be resolved to proceed. For some opposed roles, the results are obvious. For example, 2 characters are using throw to hit the same target. Both fail, both miss. Yep, that's kind of in cases where the results are more nuanced and up to the game master to determine. For example, a failed stealth roll opposing a failed listen roll might mean that the sneaky character makes noise but is still not noticed by the listener. It might also mean, though, that the listener somehow moves into the path of the sneaker and that they cannot sneak any further past without being noticed. And I like both of those, actually. I like both of those variations, and I think that's a really good idea of having those 2 examples where the same situation, the same both failing, but there's other ways of interpreting this, where the listener might know that someone did get past or might be alerted to it, or the listener could have accidentally just moved into a way of and make things harder for the future. So I like both those, but still not detecting on both counts because they didn't actually pass. So when a stalemate occurs, the best option is to change the conditions or circumstances, such as using a different skill, creating distraction, or changing tactics. And this is often referred to in Call of Cthulhu 7th edition as pushing the roll, where you can roll again if you can change the circumstance using a different skill. And you have to actually tell the games master or redescribe the situation, redescribe your attempt. So a charm trying to seduce someone, failing that, okay, screw that, let's bring out the hard guns and start threatening them. You can get the same result from it, but using a totally different tactic and totally different skill. So that's kind of what they're talking about with that. So resistance table. Some actions require more than skill or natural ability. Obstacles must be overcome for characters to succeed in case. So in these cases, where'd I go? I went way too far there. In this case, a call for a resistance roll. Resistance rolls are pit characters or other measurable quantities against each other. For example, a heavy rock might have a strength of 15. To lift it, a character must roll their strength versus the rock's size on the resistance table. To make a resistance table roll, cross-index the active characteristic to the passive characteristic, on the resistance table above. So let's have a look at that. So size 15 rock against the strength. So size 15, which will be this one, versus a. This is the power for them to actually. This is the number that they have to reach. So size 15 for them, their strength would have to be 14 there to get it as a 50-50. If their strength is 9, if the strength is 10, then it's going to be a 40%. So that's a way of working out ability versus ability. And this is kind of removed, at least in part, but I like the resistance table. It's a little bit weird to make sense, but I do like this, and it's one of the very old school parts of Call of Cthulhu, which I've always bring out the table. It's like you pull out, okay, well, this is this, okay, this is the number, this is the difficulty class, and you do get used to it. You actually get used to it. You can just quickly go, okay, this is your DC, and it's not that hard to get used to. A lot of people see new systems and go, oh my god. But once you actually start using it, it's nothing. It becomes just part of what you do. So here's an example of object size. So a glass window is size 3, a door is 4 to 8, etc., etc., etc. So if you're going to try to break a window, that will be 3, which will be here. And so they're really easy. Even if you have a strength of 10, you've got a 50. Wait. That'll be here. What do we? Trying to figure which one we're doing. So that's the attacking force. That's the defending force. Okay. So if you have a window of 3, and you have a strength of 10, which isn't that hard, which is pretty much average because you're going like from there to here. That's 85% chance of being able to break a window. That's not that hard. But then again, if you have like an automobile and things like that, then it gets harder and harder and harder and more complex. And that's how it works. So one thing I want to go into here. So here's one as well. Arm wrestling is straight strength versus strength. That's how it works there. But experience. So if a character succeeds in using their skills during challenging situations, those skills should have a chance to improve. Practice makes perfect. Or what I used to say when teaching circus in schools is practice makes betterer. Because in circus, everyone makes mistakes. Even the best jugglers in the world, they still drop things like chainsaws and babies. So still drop things like clubs, chainsaws, and babies. I think that's the monologue that I used to use in schools. It's not the monologue. It's close to it. I can't remember it fully. But yeah, so practice makes better. So if you use a skill, succeed in using a skill in a challenging situation, you have a chance to improve. Practice makes perfect. On the character sheet, a small checkbox next to each skill. On the character sheet are small checkboxes next to each skill. The first time a skill is used successfully in an adventure, the player should check the checkbox indicating that the skill has been used successfully and is eligible for experience. And that's really important. Eligible for experience. There's other variations where they have to ask the games master if they've done it. I like just if you do it, check it. It's just automatic. If you do it, check it, done. And you get used to it. It's one thing to go, oh wait, did I do this? Did I do that? But after a few sessions, you do get used to it because it's really important to check these boxes, because you're bookkeeping your own experience here, your own ability to improve your experience. So keep in mind the following. Subsequent uses of the skill in the adventure do not count towards the experience of one successful skill. So just once is enough. So if you have one skill hugely high, use it once. Don't use it, use other options if you can try other versions of using it. And if you have to push a roll, then use the skill you're better at. That's a better way of farming experience. Great. Did I just teach people how to farm experience? Oh, quite. That's not what we want. Anyway, let's get back to this. So practice makes perfect. You check boxes down the bottom here. Yeah. So successful use of two different skills. Successful use in different different specialities is 2 experience checks, not 1. For example, a success roll in knowledge occult and knowledge history are 2 different skills and are eligible for 2 separate checkboxes. 2 separate checks, that is. Using a skill when it is modified to easy. So using a skill when modified to easy, double the chance does not count. So if you try to make everything easy and try to help yourself, you don't learn from your experience. You just learn how to cheat at something or how to make it easier instead of actually learning a skill. And I like that. Using a skill in a non-threatening, non-adventuring situation where nothing is at stake doesn't count. For example, attempting to hide when no one is looking does not merit a skill experience check. Which is, I have seen, like, I still remember, what is it? It's one of the old Elder Scrolls games where if you, like, when you're exploring the world, because the world was, well, the world in at least people thought was huge, if you kept on jumping all the time as you're doing that, eventually your jump skill would improve, and then it'll improve again and improve again, and so you can jump massive distances because all you've done is you've been bunny hopping all the way to the next town and then bunny hopping all the way back, and that was just how their system did it. So you only get that skill checkbox if you've actually used it in a proper situation and you haven't made that situation super easy for yourself, and that makes a lot of sense for me. Just hold on. Okay, so we go to the next one. Where were we at? At the end of the adventure, the games master asks each player to make an experience roll for each skill successfully used and checked. An experience roll is the sorry, an experience roll is a roll higher than the skill chance, so reverse of the normal procedure. The idea is that a character gets more highly skilled, it gets harder to improve that skill. If the experience roll is higher than the skill, then the player rolls 1d6 and adds that to the total number of skills. For example, if the player is making an experience roll for a skill with 35%, the roll must be 36 or greater for success. If the player rolls 36 to 00, add 1d6 to the character's existing 35%. A roll of 100 is always an improvement, even if the skill is higher than 100%. So you can have skills that are higher than 100%. It makes opposed rolls really annoying, and some situations really annoying, but it essentially raises your lower bar. There's subsistence for it. It's a weird thing. Yes, so the idea is when you're normally rolling, you're rolling your ability check, you're rolling your skill or lower. In these situations, you want to fail the roll to improve. So you want to roll higher. So if you have 90 in a skill, you've got like a really small amount of chance of actually succeeding. Like you got a massive chance of succeeding when using the skill, sure, but you got a very small amount of chance of improving that skill. But if you've got, say, if you pass a chance of a skill which has got like 5%, then you've got 95% chance of actually leveling up that skill after the adventure, and that's a really important one. So when people see skills and like, oh, I've got so low on that, but if you pass it, great. That means you have a really good chance of actually gaining experience at the end of the adventure. And I like that system, and I think that's a really good system. And also, what it does is it puts a lot more randomness in the system. A lot of one prominent game system these days has everyone all the same, all equal, all the time. It's balanced. But why do you want balance? The world is not balanced. Life is not balanced. Why should role playing be balanced? I understand that yes, it makes everyone equal, means that everyone's having fun, but I find most fun in playing flawed characters that are not as good as others, or having issues, or having a detriment that adds to role playing. Having an unflawed character takes away from role playing. So, in this situation, if you lose a character, you don't have the same amount of experience points as someone that you that you don't have the same amount of experience points as the other people in the group. No, you start with a new character with the new stats and everything, and you have to build up again. You have to invest in that character. You can't start like with 20 or 30 or 50 more or 100 more experience points than when you originally started with, because that's what your old character had. That's what they attained. That's not who you are now. You have to start at the beginning, and you have to work your way up again. And that's how you invest. That's how you get into that character. Um, that's how that character actually gets into you. So this is why I like this game system, and it's a very universal system, so you can use it for anything. So that's a really cool thing. Anyway, so that's an example of the essentially experience points. It does give more information, of course, and bits and pieces here. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to go a little bit into time. We're already into 15 pages of 23. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to just go into a little bit of time and combat, and actions and things like that, and then dodging, etc. What else have we got? Some different variations of weapons, etc. Shields and bits and pieces, etc. But we won't, like, that's about all there is. There's not a huge amount left to go. Again, this is from Chaosism. This is free. This is the SRD that I'm reading from, that we're going through today. And it's a really, really, really good system. And it's great if you're making something, if you want to have your own homebrew world, etc. This is amazing. I highly recommend it. And I've been recommending this for years. I've only gotten to play it or run this a few times. And I think it's the absolute best for homebrew, because it's deliberately made for homebrew, and because it's classless, you don't have to make classes and then balance them. It's not meant to do that. It's meant to just jump in, put in your optional rules where you want, and that's it, done. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back shortly, and we'll go through the second half, and we won't be long with that one because there's not a huge amount left in it. The combat system is really simple. Everything's actually pretty simple right across this. But stick around. I'll be right back. Thanks for coming in. Hello, welcome back. Thank you for sticking around. Just needed a quick break before we get into the second part of our read through of the basic role playing SRD from Chaosism. You can pick up this from chaosism.com. Just follow the links for the SRD for the basic role playing. This is my go-to open world basic role playing system. It is pretty much open to quick learning, quick play, and it has rules. At least this part itself doesn't have rules for everything, but the rule book itself, again, sorry, green screen, doesn't help. The rule book itself has all the optional rules for different settings, anything from sci-fi to high fantasy, magic, etc. And there's additional books which have more details on fantasy settings, or fantasy settings, or Wild West, or magic, or things like that. And it's just a really, really nice system to just jump in, and it's made with optional rules which you can just go yes or no to, and that's how you kind of build your setting or adapt the rules to your setting itself, because everything is everything is based on the same thing. So it's not a game based off of exceptions. It's a game based with inclusion throughout the entire rule set itself. So I really, really enjoy the system and highly recommend it. So let's get back into it. We've gotten up to the timekeeping and etc. I've had to kind of shrink the page so I can read it a little bit better. It's not the full... I'll see if we can do it a little bit better here. A little bit small for me. No, actually a little bit more. I just have problems reading when it's like full... that little bit, because it's still quite a bit distance from me. But it looks pretty. Yeah. Anyway, let's go back to it. Okay, so... And we've gone through experience. Let's go back into the time. So in basic role playing, time is an important factor, mostly to determine what happens when, in what order. So that game mechanics are applied when they should be. Remember that in-game, time is usually not equivalent to time actually spent playing. Sometimes a game master may need to summarize events of many days in a single sentence, such as it takes a week for you to reach Constantinople. While at other times, specifically during combat, actions are more the actions are only a few seconds of time and can take several minutes to resolve. So sometimes in combat, you're talking about a few seconds of I'm going to do this and that, but it could take a few minutes to actually talk about what it is, then roll the dice, get the resolution, etc. That's what they're talking about there. So narrative time is the amount of time taken when the game master is narrating to the players, or when the players are discussing plans, unless there's specific reason for it. Most actual role-playing takes place in narrative time, when role-playing narrative time resembles real time, where conversation takes as long as you have to take it out and play. If a game session includes lengthy travel or periods of activity where exact time is not of an essence, then time is compressed greatly to a few moments of game time. The description of travel to Constantinople above is an example of this. If a large amounts of time being dealt with within the fashion, the games master should allow the players to perform any activities they feel fit during this time frame, within reason, of course. So essentially, it takes you a week to get to Constantinople. Is there anything you would like to do during that time? Yes, fantastic. Okay, let's move on. Is an example of that, of how I would do that. But you could just, there's also, okay, you spend off in the travel and you break everything down into little bits and pieces, like day-to-day travel and encounters and things like that. Or you just go, look, you rake it there, there's a few encounters along the way, here's a little bit of experience, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, another version of doing that. So the turn. When it is important to take note of the exact passage of time, but not the actual combat time, is measured in turns. Each turn is equal to 5 minutes or 25 combat rounds. Turns are used for general movement when there is no conflict, or in the event or other event that must be handled in a minute by minute basis. It is also a general measure of how long a certain activities take. Particular actions that are not determined in combat, such as picking a lock, finding a book in the library. In these cases, Game Master rules that certain time takes a specific number of turns to complete. I do want to note that in this, a turn is 5 minutes. A lot of systems dating back from when I started while playing good 25 years ago, 10 minutes was like the standard turn for most game systems. When they talk about a turn, they'll talk about a 10-minute, but this is a 5-minute activity. So, combat round. A combat round is used during combat sequences. It's more important to note exactly what happens and in which order. A round consists of 12 seconds, a fast-paced activity if combat takes more than one combat round. So, if a combat takes more than one combat round, another combat round begins immediately after. Combat rounds are repeated until the combat is over. A character usually gets one attack or other action and can potentially make multiple defensive actions in a combat round. During combat round, if a character does nothing else, they can walk up to 10 meters or run up to 30 meters and can still be able to watch what is going on nearby, parry incoming blows, and react to emergencies. So, as they just said, you can do one thing. So you can make an attack or you can do something. I like that it's very open to interpretation and they don't have to go into specifics. I do believe, though, there's specifics down below. Just a few, just in case. But I like that it's quite open. And it's quite clear, hey, you can do this and this and this, done. So it's also 12 seconds. 12 seconds is not common. Like 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, things like that. 6 seconds was also a common one for other systems, but 12 seconds, I don't think I've heard that being used. So I know that's me just being, that's a little bit weird, but yeah. So 5 combat rounds will be 1 minute, and 5 minutes is the math. Okay, skill time. Following are examples of game time required to perform a single use of skill. Some skills can take a variable amount of time and are listed in each appropriate. So a few seconds to an entire combat round. Most attacks and parries, artillery, brawl, dodge, drive, fast, first aid, heavy machine, hide, jump, listen, plot. It's like pilot. What am I saying? Plot. Pilot, ride, sense, shield, sleight of hand, spot, stealth, swim, throw, some charismatic rolls. So that takes a few seconds or a combat round. So 1 to 5 minutes, which is a turn, or inside a turn. 1 to, yeah. Anyway, appraise and art. So appraise, art, artillery again, bargain, climb, command, demolition, drive, etiquette, fast talk, fine manipulation, first aid, fly, gaming, insight, heavy machine again, hide, knowledge, language, listen, literacy, medicine, navigate, perform, persuade, pilot, repair, ride, sense, stealth, strategy, swim, technical skill, track, some charismatic skills. There's actually multiple charismatic skills, which is why they're just going some. So, because you got persuade, you got intimidate, you got fast talk as well, and I think there might be one or two more. So there's multiple variations of how you approach the situation. It's not just I roll a persuade skill, I roll a charm skill. So not all different variations. Anyway, let's go back to it. So 5 to 30 minutes. We go back to appraise, art, bargain, climb, command, craft, demolition, disguise, etiquette, knowledge, language, medicine, navigate, perform, ride, science, sense, status, strategy, swim, technical skill, track, some charismatic skills, and again it goes further and further and further. I'm not going to go through them all, but it gives you an idea. Like some of them takes, you can do something in small things, something in large, and most are just like you can, depending on how you're using it, it can be longer. Anyway, 6 hours to many days it even has things for listed there. So in combat, let's get into the real nitty gritty of combat, shall we? In a very non nitty gritty way. So combat is often inevitable and exciting. Part of most adventures because of its deadly nature. It is essential to know exactly what happens when in combat. Who can act in a certain time and what actions are possible in the amount of time provided. This section addresses the wide variety of actions that occur during combat, so it does actually talk about them, which is, yeah. Anyway, so 5.1, a combat round. As noted previously, a combat round is 12 seconds long, and in each character can perform actions and react to other actions in order usually determined by their dex characteristic. A combat round consists of 4 phases. These occur in the same order that they are repeated each new combat round until the combat is over. So these phrases are determined below, and they're talking about in order. So statement of intent. What you have to say what you plan on do. You move, you take your action, then you resolve, and they're done in order. Your initiative is not rolled; it is just done by your dex. So dex is kind of important, and it'll just keep them scrolling through the decks with the highest dex starting first, and then going through from that point on. If there's shared decks, a games master would just say, look, either one can take either order. A main games master, if there's a monster or a protagonist or threat in that order of the same as other people, they might say, well, the monster goes first or the creature goes first, etc. That's how I do things, because I'm mean. Actually, I'm mean in systems which are very player friendly. I'm more balanced in systems which are are more dangerous to players, which is kind of a weird thing. I do have a balance in my mindset, so I kind of, yeah. So, statement of intent. The game master and the players involved in the combat round must announce what they will do. The order that actions can be attempted is determined by each of the character's dexterity characteristic. The players or game master do not need to announce defensive actions, parries, dodges, etc. during this phase. Statements of intent should be handled in order of the dex characteristics. So it's actually saying the person with the highest dex, this is my intent. That can be right. Um. So yeah, from highest to lowest, the player character with the highest dex must rank makes their statements of intent before the character with the lowest dex rank. Usually, the game master counts down before the highest dexterity to the lowest, calling out each player to state their intended action at the appropriate times and announcing how the non-player characters will act at their appropriate characteristics. If there is a need to determine who acts first when dex ranks are tied, use the relevant skill missile weapon. Missile weapons before melee weapons, for example. If both are using the same type of weapon, the character with the highest skill rating goes first. If these are tied, so totally ignore what I said before about orders. It's actually got systems here. It's got subsystems to go for tiebreakers. So missile weapons go before melee. If that's what's happening, if you're tied, missile weapons goes first. But if you're both using the same style, well, the person with the highest skill goes first, and then etc. etc. My version is very much just arbitrary. This actually has subsystems already built in. Okay. Some game masters and players choose to forego the verbal part of the statement of intent phase and move directly into counting down decks and acting. This is what I'm used to. This is how I played other variations of this rule set, but I like the statement of intent. Statement of intent actually dates back to even games like Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, where your statement of intent, what you want to do in your dex order, what your actions are going to be, actually apply to your dex roll. So if you're planning to attack with a dagger, then that dagger costs 1 extra on top of your initiative roll, so you actually add that to the roll when you roll it. If you want to cast a spell like a fireball, that's going to add 5 to your roll. And if you're going to use something like a giant hammer or like a two-handed sword, that may add 10 to your roll. So you do your statement of intent first, and then you roll your dice. In this case, the dex order is already predetermined. There's no dice, but you have your statement of intent in order, and then you do your movement. So if the character is not involved in combat, they can move around 30 meters in the combat turn. If the character is not involved in combat, they can move around 30 meters in combat turn if performing no other actions than defensive parries or dodges. If a character can move between 6 to 15 meters and still act at half the normal dex rate. Moving between 16 to 29 meters in combat means that the character acts at 1/4 the normal dex rank. Okay. So that's a little bit of complication there, but it still allows for movement. Actions. Characters act on their dex rank. So someone on dex rank of 30 goes 15. So someone at dex rank of 15 goes before someone dex rank of 14. If there are multiple characters on the same dex rank, attacks are made or performed in order of the weapon type. Okay, which would be missile before melee. Okay. So attackers armed with missile weapons, blowguns, etc., are able to act before those in hand-to-hand melee. After these go, characters armed with long weapons, spears, lances, and then those with medium weapons, and then shorter weapons, etc. Okay, so it's very much range, then long weapons, then medium, then small, and then tiny, which is the opposite of what second edition Dungeons and Dragons would do, where the shortest weapons are the quickest to act, and the biggest weapons are the slowest to act. They do have the opposite concept here. But that's again only if they're all on the same dex rank. If the weapon is more than one range listed, the user can choose which range to act on, which is probably going to be the longer one. Parries and dodges occur within the same dex rank as the original attack. So attacking, roll D100, try to obtain a result equal to or lower than your attack chance with a melee weapon, missile weapon, heavy weapon, etc. Lower is better. If the roll is 1/5 of the attack roll, it has achieved a special success described in 5.13 special successes, which was also mentioned above. At the Games Master discretion, a related specialty skill may be applied if difficult 1/2 chance, for example, the Game Master may allow the character to use a sword with their dagger skill as both a melee weapon specified. Oh, okay. So if you don't have specified, so if you have a... Okay, let's go back to that. So at the Game Master's discretion, a related skill may be used as a difficult or 1/2 chance. So a Game Master may allow a character to use a sword with a dagger skill. So if the person's got skill on dagger, they can kind of use a sword, and just a really big sword, but that's not really what they're used to, so it's going to be half skill. That's okay. I don't mind that at all. A special success on an attack is better than a normal success, and requires an equally successful parry or dodge to avoid. Any roll higher than the attack chance is a failure and does no damage to the opponent. If an attack is successful and no damage to the intended target. If the attack is successful, do damage to the intended target, 5/12 for injury and damage, etc. Parrying. Parry is the act of knocking or blocking the attacking weapon out of the way of the relevant melee. Using the relevant melee skill, a parry is determined after the attack roll is made. If an attack fails, it does not need to be parried. If the attack is successful, the target of that attack may wish to parry it. To parry, the character must be aware and be able to see the incoming attack. Kind of important there. Needs to be aware of it. To determine the successful parry, the attack roll to determine a successful parry, just like the attack roll, by rolling the percentage dice of the parry skill equal to your weapon's attack skill. A special skill described below means especially good parry and is required to fully counteract an attack skill with. If someone attacked you with a special success, you have to parry with a special success. If they just succeeded, you have to just succeed on your parry. It is impossible to parry firearms or high velocity weapons such as energy weapons because they are in the system, because hey, it can deal with everything. Generally, one needs to shield to parry heavy missile weapons. Weapons and shields occasionally take damage from being used to parry, and can even break if their hit points are overcome. I like that. I like that can happen. Like parrying something big with something flimsy, it's going to break it. And there's a risk. So dodging. This is the act of getting out of the way of an incoming attack using a dodge skill. A dodge is determined after the attack roll is made. If an attack roll fails, you don't need to dodge. If the attack roll is successful, the target of the attack may wish to dodge it. To dodge, the character must be aware of and able to see the incoming attack. Determine successful dodge roll like an attack roll by rolling percentile dice below the dodge skill chance. So a special success described below means that an especially good dodge is required to avoid that. So special success needs a special attempt to dodge as well to avoid it. It is impossible to dodge firearms or high velocity weapons, although a game master may allow a character to dodge arrows or thrown weapons if the task is difficult, half the normal score that is. In these cases, the assumed character saw the attacker's intent and just jumped out of the way before the actual release of the arrow, etc. So we've got the attack defense matrix. I won't go into it more than essentially attack roll versus. Sorry, how can I put this? Okay, so special success and a special parry. This is a special success or a special parry. Special attack versus a special parry or dodge roll. The defender parries or dodges, no result. If there's a normal success roll, if there's a normal success and a failure of the parry or failure of the dodge, then the attacker succeeds. The defender's armor subtracts the damage value. If there's a failure, you don't need to dodge or etc. If there's a special success and just a successful parry or dodge, then the attack value is parried or dodged and achieves a normal success instead. So it takes away the special part of the success, but it still hits. And also parrying a weapon or shield takes 2 points of damage, if that's the case. I just noticed that part too. And also this part, if you have a normal success and you do a special parry, or special dodge, that is, the defender blocks, the dodger blocks, etc. No result. If parried, the melee weapon takes 1 point of damage. So if you are doing that, you are going to take weapon damage or shield damage, etc. I like that. I like things that have a risk of, I can defend myself, but I can't defend myself all the time. It's going to break. That type of thing. So a quick means of determining who hits in combat and compared to the levels. There we go there. So special success is greater than success is greater than failure. Essentially, yeah. And then we've got the more detailed ones below. Yep. And then we have the weapon damages. So the skill and specialty skill used is listed. And it's got missile weapons, energy weapons, firearms, etc. The base chance of the skill, which is added to your skill. So your base chance is here, through the middle. So this is your base. Anyone can have, even if they've never used it, that's your base. They can just pick it up and go. You can just point a gun. That's like how it, yeah. Or you can use a heavy club. At 25, it's like you just hit something. There's some innate idea of, oh yeah, that's an easy thing just to pick up and do it. But things like a great sword are a bit unwieldy and hard to maneuver and manipulate, so they're a bit harder. Or a sling, again, harder to use. So those type of things are listed in, and they're also included. So the damage of the weapon does, again, 512 damage in injury. The attacker's damage bonus is added to it, yes or no. So it's, the DB means yes, the damage bonus is added to it. So it's got DB for mostly melee things, and a few thrown. But when it comes to firearms and crossbows, etc., you don't get your damage bonus on top of it. You just get the weapon, and the weapon's generally going to be stronger anyway from those, without the damage bonus. So number of hands needed to use the weapon property. So there's your 1 hand, 2 hand, and then you've got your hit points. If it has a hit points it have if used to parry, so that's pretty good. Brawl doesn't have a parry one because you can't parry with your own hands. It doesn't work that way, but it does give you hit points. So I'm just going to look at something like a rifle. Well, no, it's probably unapplicable. Let's see, a dagger. A dagger has 15 hit points. A halberd has 25. A mace, a light mace has 6 hit points, and a heavy mace has 10. So that's a good example of kind of what's going on there. So it also has the range provided in meters. Yes, meters. Sorry, but most countries in the world, most of the world's population uses meters. Yeah. And has up to 3 times the range. Sorry. At up to 3 times the range, the attack has a chance of 1/4 of the normal chance, and beyond that beyond 3 times the range, there's no chance of hitting. So when it comes to range, at twice the normal range, you get half chance, and at 3 times the range, you get a quarter chance. So the range listed is not the full range, but also like it can increment. Longbow 90 meters has a standard range, but 3 times that which will be 180 is half. So 180 is twice that, so that's half the difficulty, and then that's a 360. It's 270 is a quarter range. So my background is archery. I actually did archery for many years, and I also did flighting. So at 180 meters, that is called clouting. That's actually a type of archery called clouting, where you're lobbing arrows in. That is a absolute legitimate thing, and that sounds about right for about half skill. And then when you go up again to about 270, you've got about a quarter skill, which is also about right. You can actually fire in a straight line at like upwards of 400 meters. I've done that myself, but grouping them together, you're looking at about a 10 meter, a 15 meter, 20 meter line of that grouping. But you can get them in a straight line. Just getting them that right angle, that's really, really difficult, because there's a lot of things going on. Even the slightest breeze can just start moving them around, but at least that's that. So that sounds about right. That actually kind of sounds right. You're not going to hit anything at a quarter of your skill at that much range unless you're really, 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 really good. So that sounds about right for me, at least from my experience. And I did have quite a bit of experience, by the way. Okay, so armor. This is really important. I like how armor works too. So, armor protects the wearer from being injured. It's non-invulnerable, though light armor stops a little damage and heavy armor stops a lot of damage. For example, soft leather stops 1 point of damage, while full plate stops 8 points of damage. When a character is hit in combat, subtract the armor points from the damage that has been rolled. The damage above and beyond the armor's protection value bypasses the armor and is inflicted on the character, reducing their current hit points. The following is an example of various types of armor as defined by armor points. How many points are subtracted from the damage? And additional effects that the armor has got. Physical skills are climb, dodge, fine manipulation, hide, jump, sleight of hand, stealth, swim, throw, and agility characteristic rolls, while perception skills are listen, spot. At the game master's discretion, other skills may also be affected. So a bulletproof vest absorbs 8 points of armor, absorbs 8 points of damage, but has minus 5% on all physical skills. A chain vest or chain shirt, or actually just chain mail maybe, does 7 points of armor absorption or damage absorption, but 20% of physical skills. That's about right. It's painful wearing that type of thing. Flak jacket, 4, and then minus 10% on physical skills. Heavy clothing absorbs 1 point of damage, but doesn't have any skill modifiers. A heavy helmet, plus 2 armor points, so plus 2 to what you already had on the rest of it, and does minus 50% perception, and again has other things there. So leather hard is 2 points of absorption and 10% physical. So Riot Gear has a 12/6, which is a bit different. I don't know what that would be. Why there's a 12/6 there. But that could be something else. But that's it's a big gambit there. There's a lot of things there, from bulletproof vests to hoplite armor to soft leathers to full plate, etc. There's a lot of different things in there. So shields. Essentially, a shield is a movable non-weapon obstacle. A movable non-weapon obstacle a character uses to intercept incoming attacks. Parrying with a shield follows the same rules as parrying with a weapon, though low-velocity missile weapons, thrown arrows, etc., can be parried with a shield. Generally, the target shield has a 15% chance to parry missile weapons. A full kite, heater, kite, or round shield has a 30% chance. A large hoplite riot shield has 60%. A character, if a character kneels behind a large shield, that becomes 90%. So that's really good. And so that riot shield is also probably about the same size as like the Roman square shields as well. Or sorry, tower shields. So it does. That's about right. I can verify that. I've done stuff with medieval societies before. It's about right. Yep. Essentially, a shield. There we go. So shields are described by their base chance to parry, or attack with. Damage can be done. So shields are described by their base chance to parry or attack with. Damage done if used as a weapon, shield bash, etc., and by armor points. A shield is immobile and has armor points to determine how many points it protects a location against, and if it is damaged, reduce the hit points of normal, etc. So that's pretty cool. So we'll go to, say, the kite shield. The kite shield is your normal, like that. So it has a 15% chance to block arrows. It has skill is shield to then use your parries. It has 16 armor points and a D4 plus damage bonus for a hit on a shield. Not bad. Let's get into the damage and injuries. Here we go. I think this is the final parts here. So damage and injury. Each player's hit points. Yes, that's been said before. Derived from their constitution and size. When the weapon successfully strikes a character, the damage and gets past the armor, damage points are subtracted from the current hit points. So if an unarmored character has 12 hit points and is wearing less, if an uninjured character has 12 hit points and is wearing leather armor worth 2 points, and takes 6 points of damage from an attack, 2 points are subtracted, and that person takes 4 points of damage. This reduces their hit points to 8. Any more damage is reduced from this new total. Pretty basic and pretty standard, except for the fact that the armor actually stops a certain amount of damage, which I like. So if a character is reduced to 2 hit points and they fall unconscious, if a character is reduced to 2 hit points, they fall unconscious for 1d6 hours until awakened by another character. If the character is reduced to 0 hit points and remains 0 at the end of the combat round, they are dead. Wow. So 0 is not unconscious, 2 is unconscious. 0 is dead. Dead is really quick. Dead is really easy. Characters can have injuries in excess of their hit points going below 0 to negative values. First aid attempts, see the next section on healing, must be applied to these negative hit points to bring the character's hit points into a positive. And they have to do it quickly because that's combat turn they were talking about. So combat round. So they need to be seen to really, really quickly. Really, really quickly. Special successes. This is the other part behind. It's been mentioned a few times. So in combat with a special success is achieved, it means that a combat with exceptional well-made strike deep into the opponent's body, hitting perfectly. A special success is often a killing blow, and to most normal opponents. To determine the value of a special success, determine the maximum damage that the weapon can roll, add that to the result, and then add that to the result of the normal damage, and add the normal modifier to it on top of that. So that's a big thing. Um, so again, big popular games, special success or critical success, you just roll the damage twice. In this case, you see that D8? Okay, so you roll that D8 and then you add 8. You add the maximum. So if it's a D8 plus 1, you add 9 and then you roll your normal D8 plus 1. So you get your maximum amount and then you add it. So the examples below here, which I hope I've then explained it right. For example, a special success earned with a short sword deals the weapon's normal damage, which is maximum of d6 plus 1, so 7, which is to which normal roll damage and the damage bonus is added. So you get 7, and then you do your normal rolling and your damage bonus on top of that. So that's really, really, really powerful. So that could get up to a total of 13 in this example here. So that's special success. Healing. I think we've only got 2 pages left. We'll deal with that. Let's go. So healing. A character usually heals 1d hit points per game week, meaning that at the end of the 7-day period, the game master rolls 1d3 and the character has that many hit points restored up to the total maximum hit points. If the character is in hospital under ideal conditions and receiving top-notch medical treatment, the game master may choose to allow the maximum healing of 3 rather than rolling. Successful use of first aid skill heals 1d3 hit points per injury. Keep track of each injury separately, and the first aid skill can be applied to wounds to reduce the severity, restoring those lost hit points. Successful use of first aid can only heal a total hit points of the damage that wound is. So tracking damage individually, it doesn't get used very often in digital formats like we use these days. But I do remember years ago having character sheets just with all the like -1, like that range going up and down on the character sheet, and just over game sessions have like the corner of the sheet, like in the borders of all the hit points totals, and that just going, and then eventually I'll just erase them all and going back. So tracking first aid can only, if you take 5 points of damage, you can heal that damage. If you take a 5 and a 1 and a 3, you can heal the 3 times in first aid, but that 1 can only heal 1 back, even if you're 3 on your first aid. So there's a little bit of complication there, but it does make sense. It really does make sense for me. But if you're just doing long rest, well, 1d3 per week, or 3 if you have ideal conditions. You don't get much hit points in this game, and like damage is really dangerous. Like combat is really dangerous. But if you want, you could always just try to do pop rules where you get double the amount of hit points, and healing would be a lot more. So it's a very different, like a little bit slight, or you could even do triple or more, or just depending on game style. The more realistic a game, the more dangerous it is, the more gritty it becomes. The less realistic, the less gritty, the more hit points you have, it becomes a little bit like the mood changes depending on that. So there we go on that. Spot rules. So spot rules are a variety of situations in the outside of combat that include environmental issues, damage from sources, or modified from may affect gameplay. Ambush is attack. So if the attacker successfully stealth, hide, will remain undetected, versus listen, spot, etc., can ambush the opponent. If the attacks are made with missile weapons, the ambusher gets a single combat round where the attacks are easy, so double, wow. If the attacker is using a melee weapon, the defender can only try to dodge or parry if available. So, if a weapon is available. So, if they don't have a weapon out, they can't even parry if you get them like that. So, that's a pretty good one there. So, for one combat round, there we go. The next combat round is handled as normal. So backstab, if the target is unaware of the whereabouts of the attacker, the target may make a difficult listen. So the target must make a difficult listen, sense, or sense spot, etc. If the target remains unaware, the attacker unaware, an attacker behind or to the side of them can try a backstab the opponent with an easy attack. Dodging, parrying this attack is considered difficult. So they get an easy attack, so they get double their skill, and the defender gets half their skill with a dodge, with a difficult. So that really, really skews things out. But doing it, sneaking up behind, and they have to make a difficult listen, etc., etc. So there's difficulties there. Cover, hiding behind cover, equal to or up to half the character's size, offers a defensive bonus. If an item can serve as cover, a missile attacks against the character is considered difficult. An attack would normally hit but misses. It is assumed it has hit the cover. The games master should determine if the attack passes through the cover, reducing the damage appropriately, so shooting through walls, etc. if you're using modern firearms, etc., etc. Darkness, if fighting in near total darkness without night vision or equivalent, all the combat skills become difficult. In pitch black darkness, all the combat skills are equivalent to power expressed as a percentage of difficult. Power expressed as as a percentage, and all are difficult, whichever is lower. Okay, that's complex, but it really, really mean. I kind of understand what they're going there. Disease, if a character exposed to a minor disease, such as a bad cold or mind fluid, they must make a stamina roll, con times 5, to see if the disease is contracted. Success means, we don't need to go into disease, but it also goes into probably medical and other things there, but we won't go into that in detail. Illness and severity, again, going to pretty much the same things. Drawing a weapon. Drawing a weapon from a sheath or holster reduces Drawing a weapon from a sheath or holster reduces effective dex rank by 5. Putting the weapon away takes the same amount it takes to draw it. Okay, so what they're talking about there is drawing your weapon moves your dex rank, moves your actual initiative rank down by 5. That's what they're talking there. But if you by putting it away at the same amount doesn't bring you back up. Yeah, you're still at the same drop. And you also don't drop it when you put it away. But drawing it takes time to do it, is what they're saying. Penalizes you. Falling character takes 1d6 damage per 3 meters of falling, which is essentially 10 feet. And round up, for example, a 7 meter fall will be 3d6 damage. A successful dodge reduces this by 1d6 at the games master's discretion. I don't mind that. I know if the fall is just flat, there's nothing controlling. They can't react off that. They can't really manipulate the body to do it. Then you say, look, you can't do it. But if they're pushed off, they can kind of move in the air. They can have some physical movement to reduce it. Yeah, sure. Or you might even make it a little bit easier if there's something they can use to manipulate that. So firing into combat, firing missile weapons at a character that is engaged in combat penalizes the attacker by 20% of their skill chance. Firing a missile weapon at another character while both the attacker and the target are engaged in melee makes the attack difficult. So if you're both in melee, it's really difficult. Remember, difficulty is actually really bad. But firing at someone in combat, there's still that difficulty chance, an added 20%. And the GM may, or Games Master may just go, look, you fire into combat, if you get that last 20%, you actually have hit your other person, and that might be a thing as well. Some Game Masters, like myself, are really mean. Knockout attacks. It is possible to attempt to knock out another character unconscious rather than killing them. Knock someone out, make a difficult attack roll as normal, subtracting armor. Compare the damage done to the character's hit points total. Hit points total not current. Oh, that's interesting. If the damage is greater than half the character's normal hit points, then the total character is knocked out. That's an interesting one. So when knocking out, you're trying to take away from half their hit points total, not their current. So there's a different way of doing it. I don't mind that. We've got poisons. We won't go into poisons because poison can be a whole thing in itself. I think we're pretty good, and an example of a foe, and we're pretty good there. So that's like an example of an NPC, a bear. So there's our character sheet again, and I think this is pretty much the end of um, our read through. So we're just going to there and go back to the start. There we go. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the basic role playing game. It's a really, really nice subsystem, as I keep on saying. It's expandable to everything. All the players need to do is have a quick read through this and get a nice understanding of the rules. And then when you build your own system or when you build your own setting, you can use your full book. Again, sorry about the green screen. The yellow reacts to the green. And you can then add additional rules and applications into that. And the additional rules are not actually built as exceptions, they're built as additions. So in certain games, as I keep on mentioning, they have a very simple core base, and then every single rule on top of that is an exception. Spellcasting is an exception. Abilities are exceptions. Everything makes an exception. So as the characters get more powerful, in their classes, etc., then they have more exceptions, and things become very complex and very slow. In a game like this, there's no classes. Everything is built in the same thing. Your class is just your profession, and your profession may give you certain things. You can negotiate with your games master, and when you go up in levels, you're not getting special abilities. You're just improving your skills, and it's not just you're not even going up in levels. As you use a skill, at the end of a session, you can just check to see if you pass or fail that skill, and if you fail that skill, will you actually pass and increase the value of that? And so everything becomes natural. Everything becomes based inside the core, and is inclusive. And even the other systems, like with magic, etc., are still based in the same setting, the same rule setting. So I really, really, really recommend this. It is such a good system, and it then leads into other things like Call of Cthulhu and Pathfinder and other games. Not Call of Cthulhu, Pendragon, Paladin, etc. I see them as the same thing, but they're etc. So it's a really, really good system. If you're making your own homebrew stuff, really, really highly recommend it and check it out. The books are fairly cheap. You can get them in PDFs. You can get them like the basic role playing SRD is a PDF which you can download for free from Chaosism, and Chaosism are an amazing company. They've been around for a long, long, long while. They're not selling out to other companies. They're not new companies using other people's IPs or materials. They've got their own stuff, and they've been doing amazing for many, many years. And they're very, very nice people and a nice company, a very mature and conscious company about who they are. So I highly recommend them as a company, um, because they do good things for the community. So my name is Karshgom. I'm going to wrap this up. I don't know what we're going to do next week. We'll put up a poll and just see how we go. So thank you for listening. Thank you for making to this point. And if you're on YouTube, just leave a comment. What do you think about it? What games have you played that you like? What games would you recommend that we go through and that we teach others? So that's a bye for now, and keep having fun. Bye.